In the land of Canaan, where the winds whispered over pastures and the skies stretched wide, lived Jacob, son of Isaac, father to 12 sons. But among them was one who shined brighter, Joseph. Jacob stands near his tent, his eyes resting fondly on Joseph. The boy wears a coat, a long, flowing robe with many colors, vibrant and striking. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his other sons, for he was the child of his old age, and to show this love, he gave him a robe unlike any other, a robe of many colors. The brothers watch with resentment. Their fists clench, their eyes burn. Joseph said, "I had a dream. Listen to this. Sheaves of wheat stand in a field. Suddenly Joseph's sheaf rises high, and the others bow down to it." His brothers, laughing bitterly, said, "So you think you'll rule over us? You'll reign over us?" Next morning, Joseph tells it. This time, even his father is listening. Joseph said, "I saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to me." Jacob frowns and said, "Will your mother and I and your brothers bow down to the ground before you?" But even as he speaks, a flicker of curiosity and awe lights Jacob's eyes. Next morning, Joseph tells it. This time, even his father is listening. Joseph said, "I saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to me." Jacob frowns and said, "Will your mother and I and your brothers bow down to the ground before you?" But even as he speaks, a flicker of curiosity and awe lights Jacob's eyes. His brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in his heart. The dreams, strange and bold, had begun to stir the winds of destiny. Days passed, and the tension among the brothers grew like a storm cloud. Then one day, Jacob called for Joseph. Jacob warmly said, "Your brothers are pasturing the flocks near Shechem. Go and see if all is well with them, and bring word back to me." Joseph sets out on foot, walking across vast hills, his robe catching the wind like a flag of favor. He is unaware, being watched by fate. Joseph wanders the fields of Shechem, searching. A stranger points him toward Dothan. But as he approached, far off in the distance, they saw him coming. His robe gave him away, and in that moment, murder crossed their hearts. One among his brothers said, "Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him, throw him into a pit. Say a wild animal devoured him." But Reuben steps forward, voice trembling with restraint. "Reuben, no, don't shed blood. Throw him into this dry cistern, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben planned to come back later, to rescue the boy and return him to their father. But fate had other plans. As Joseph arrives smiling, his brothers pounce. A brief struggle, dust rises. His robe is torn from him. He screams. They shove him violently into the pit, a dry, empty hole. The sound of his cry echoes. Joseph carries, "Why are you doing this? Please!" Judah calculated, "What profit is there in killing him? Let's sell him. He is our brother after all." They pulled Joseph from the pit. He's bruised, dusty, terrified. He pleads, but they ignore him. Silver coins clink as Joseph is exchanged, sold like livestock. The traders tie him and lead him away. He looks back, eyes full of betrayal. For 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold into the hands of strangers. The boy who dreamed now marched toward slavery. Reuben, shouting, "The boy is gone. What have you done?" They all panic. But one has an idea. Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in its blood. They present it to Jacob. Jacob shakes in fear. "It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him." Joseph is surely torn to pieces. Jacob tears his clothes, covers himself in sackcloth, and weeps for days. No comfort reaches him. Joseph was gone, betrayed by blood. But heaven was not finished. In the land of Egypt, destiny was waiting. In Egypt, far from home, the boy once wrapped in colors was now a slave. But heaven had not abandoned him. Potiphar, a high-ranking Egyptian officer and captain of Pharaoh's guard, inspects Joseph, nods in approval, and purchases him. And the Lord was with Joseph. He served faithfully, and soon favor followed. Joseph sweeps floors, tends gardens, organizes records, quickly rising in trust and responsibility. Potiphar watches him with admiration. Everything Joseph touched flourished, and Potiphar made him overseer of his entire household. The boy in chains now ruled under a master's roof. But danger wears perfume in the house of the powerful. Potiphar's wife said in a low voice, "Lie with me." Joseph is stunned. He turns away and said firmly, "My master has trusted me with everything. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" This becomes a pattern. Day after day she presses him. Joseph avoids her. Tension thickens. Then, one day, the house is empty, and then the trap was sprung. She grabs his cloak. He wrests himself free and flees. The cloth remains in her hand. Potiphar's wife screams, "He tried to attack me. This Hebrew slave came to make sport of me." Potiphar returns. His face hardens as he hears the lie. Joseph, though innocent, is dragged away. And though no guilt stained his hands, Joseph was thrown into the prison where Pharaoh's prisoners were held. Yet, even in prison, the Lord was with Joseph. The warden notices him, assigns him responsibility over the inmates. Trust returns. They could chain his body, but not his spirit. Joseph stands at the edge of the prison, his eyes looking upward. A faint breeze brushes his face through the bars. He had lost his robe, his freedom, his name, but not his God. And that would be the key to a throne he never imagined. Sometime later, two high-ranking officers of Pharaoh, his chief cupbearer and chief baker, offended the king, and he was furious. Both are thrown into the prison where Joseph now serves as overseer. And they were placed under Joseph's care. 2 men, 2 mysteries, and a divine setup. A few days later, Joseph finds both men troubled, pale, restless, their eyes full of fear. Joseph said gently, "Why do you look so sad today?" Cupbearer replied, "We both had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph leans in, eyes calm and confident. Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." "In my dream, I saw a vine before me. On the vine were 3 branches. As it budded, blossoms sprang forth, and then clusters of ripe grapes appeared almost instantly. I had Pharaoh's cup in my hand. I took the grapes, crushed them into the cup, and placed it back in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph narrates to him very confident, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position." Joseph pleads, "But when it goes well with you, remember me. Speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. I was taken from my people, and I've done nothing to deserve this prison." The baker, encouraged, steps forward. "I too had a dream. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white bread stacked on my head. In the top basket, there were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh. But then birds came, and they ate them out of the basket on my head." Joseph narrates solemnly, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree. The birds will eat your flesh." The baker stares, paralyzed by fear. Silence falls in the prison. The weight of judgment lingers in the air. And on the 3rd day, Pharaoh lifted up the heads of the cupbearer and the baker. One was raised, the other was executed. just as Joseph had said. But the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. 2 years passed. Joseph remained in prison, forgotten by man, but not by God. Pharaoh gasps awake, his eyes wild. A dream disturbs his soul. Pharaoh instructed, "Summon the magicians, the wise men. I want answers." 2 years passed. Joseph remained in prison, forgotten by man, but not by God. Pharaoh gasps awake, his eyes wild. A dream disturbs his soul. Pharaoh instructed, "Summon the magicians, the wise men. I want answers." Pharaoh narrates his first dream. Pharaoh stood by the great Nile. The water shimmered, peaceful. But then, out of the river rising from the depths, came 7 cows. But then, behind them, came another 7. These were different, ugly, gaunt, their ribs visible, eyes hollow. They looked as though famine clung to their bones. And then, a horror no eye had seen. The 7 skinny cows moved toward the 7 fat ones and devoured them whole. Pharaoh lay back down, but sleep returned only to deliver another vision, one even more unsettling than the first. This time, Pharaoh saw a single stalk of grain rising from the earth, tall, golden, and full. From it came 7 heads of grain, plump and good, swaying gently in the warm breeze. But then, from the same soil, came 7 thin heads, scorched by the east wind, dry and twisted like the claws of a dying plant. And the 7 thin heads of grain, with sharp, unnatural hunger, swallowed up the 7 full heads. Just like before, the abundance was consumed, yet no fullness remained. Pharaoh awakens again, disturbed. No one can interpret his dreams. Then the cupbearer remembered. Cupbearer, anxious, and said, "Pharaoh had dreams. No one can interpret them. But I remember a Hebrew slave in prison. He interprets dreams." Pharaoh instructed that Joseph should be fetched quickly. Joseph is brought up, quickly shaved, dressed, and cleaned. He stands before Pharaoh, regal yet humble. Pharaoh said, "I heard you can interpret dreams." Joseph, calm but bold, responded, "I cannot, but God can give Pharaoh the answer he seeks." Pharaoh tells the dreams. Joseph listens, calm and confident. As Pharaoh recounts the 2 dreams, silence fills the palace. Joseph narrates clearly. The dreams mean the same thing. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance will sweep through Egypt, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. Let Pharaoh appoint a wise and discerning man to oversee the land, store the surplus during the 7 good years, so the nation may survive the 7 years of famine. Pharaoh looks at his officials, then at Joseph. Pharaoh said, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" He rises and takes off his royal signet ring and declares, "You shall be in charge of my palace. Only in respect to the throne will I be greater than you." In one day, the prisoner became prince. The dreamer became the ruler. Joseph receives a new name, Zaphanath-Paneah, and marries Asenath. He oversees the storage during the 7 good years. In time, he has 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Joseph remembered the pain, but now he ruled with purpose. Egypt was prepared. The famine would come, but so would redemption. The famine spread like a silent curse, and even in the tents of Jacob, the grain was gone. But news came from Egypt. There was food there. Jacob calls his sons. "Why are you just looking at each other? I've heard there's grain in Egypt. Go, buy some, that we may live." All the sons, except Benjamin, set out. Jacob refuses to let his youngest go, fearing harm, and they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. The dreamer remembered. Joseph recognizes them instantly, but they do not recognize him. Joseph spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" His brothers responded, "From Canaan, to buy food." Joseph said, accusing them, "You are spies. You came to see where our land is unprotected." His brothers, afraid and desperate, "No, my lord, we are honest men. 12 brothers we were, one is no more, and the youngest is with our father." Joseph stares, heart pounding. The memories, the betrayal. Benjamin's still alive, his father still living. But Joseph wasn't ready to reveal himself. Not yet. He needed to test their heart. Joseph throws them in prison for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said, "Let one stay behind. The rest may go and carry grain back to your families, but bring back your youngest brother to prove your honesty." The brothers speak among themselves in Hebrew, unaware Joseph understands. One among his brothers said guiltily, "Surely we are being punished for what we did to our brother." Reuben said to them, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against him?" Joseph turns away to hide his tears. He is moved, but must remain silent. Joseph fills their sacks with the grain, but secretly returns their silver in each bag. When they stopped for the night, they opened a sack, and there it was, silver. Their hearts sank. Fear gripped them. They returned to Jacob without Simeon and tell the full story. Jacob weeps. Jacob, grieving. "Joseph is gone. Simeon is gone. And now you want to take Benjamin too? Everything is against me." Reuben tries to offer his own sons in exchange for Benjamin's safety, but Jacob refuses. The brothers had bowed. The dream had begun to breathe. But forgiveness and healing were still far away. Judah vows, "I will guarantee his safety. If I do not bring him back, I will bear the blame forever." Finally, Jacob gives in. Jacob said softly, "If it must be so, take gifts. Take double the silver and take Benjamin. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man." Joseph enters. They bow again. Joseph sees Benjamin and cannot hold back. Joseph to Benjamin, "God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hurries away to weep in private. He returns, composed. He sat them at the table by birth order, and the men looked at one another in shock. How could this Egyptian know? Servants bring plates, but Benjamin's portion is 5 times more than the rest. The youngest was honored. A final test was being prepared. A heart was being watched. Oh, they had passed the first test. But Joseph had one more trial to expose their hearts. He had been betrayed, sold, imprisoned, raised. But now, the moment of reckoning was near. Joseph lowers his voice and said, "Fill their sacks with food, as much as they can carry. Put each man's silver back in his sack, and place my silver cup in the youngest one's bag." It was a trap, not to destroy, but to reveal, to see what lived in their hearts. After all these years, the brothers leave Egypt with relief and joy. But their joy is short-lived. Steward shouted, "Why have you repaid good with evil? You stole my master's silver cup, the one he uses for divination." The brothers stunned. Brothers responded in unison, "Why would we do such a thing? If any of us has the cup, he shall die, and the rest of us will become slaves." From the oldest to the youngest, each sack was opened. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Then Benjamin's sack. The silver cup glints in the sun. Silence. Horror. The youngest, the most loved, was marked. They tear their clothes in grief and return to the city. The very brother who once suggested selling Joseph was now willing to become a slave to save Benjamin. Joseph turns away again. His shoulders shake. The time has come, but not yet. The test was over. The truth had been revealed. They were not the same men who once sold their brother, but Joseph still had one more word to speak. The dream had been fulfilled, but what Joseph saw now was not pride, it was love. Joseph can no longer hold it in. Joseph shouted, "Everyone, leave me." For years he held the mask, the pain, the truth, but now everything burst from his soul. Joseph sobs loudly. The sound echoes through the palace. And the Egyptians heard, even Pharaoh's household heard. The brothers look up, confused, scared. Joseph wept and gave a shocking announcement. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" Silence. Shock. Their faces pale. They couldn't answer. They were terrified. Joseph steps closer, hands open, tears streaming. "Joseph, come near." The brothers edge forward, trembling. Joseph said gently, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Joseph's voice was firm, but yet kind. "But do not be distressed. Do not blame yourselves, because it was not you who sent me here, but God." Joseph grabs them one by one. He embraces Benjamin, both weeping. Then he kisses all of the brothers, and they talked like brothers again. For the first time in over 20 years, the family began to heal. Then Joseph gives orders. "Joseph, go quickly. Bring my father. Tell him everything. Tell him I am alive and ruler of all Egypt. Tell him to come. I will provide for him." What began with betrayal ended with reunion. What was buried in grief rose in glory. Joseph rides out in a royal chariot. The moment he sees his father, he stops. Years of pain, years of silence. Now, father and son meet again. Joseph runs to him. He falls on his father's neck and weeps a long time. Jacob said softly, "Now I can die, since I have seen your face again." What they meant for evil, God meant for good. Jacob reaches out, places a weathered hand on Joseph's, and smiles. Joseph closes his eyes, tears falling silently down his face. Betrayed, forgotten, but never abandoned. Joseph's story reminds us, when life falls apart, God is still weaving a greater plan. If this story moved you, don't stop here. There are more stories of hope, forgiveness, and divine purpose waiting for you. Subscribe to Bible Story Cinema. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement. Turn on notifications to never miss a moment of God's story unfolding, because every story in the Bible points to the one who writes them all.